Hello gin lovers and welcome back to No Nonsense Gin Reviews with me, Bobby Freeman. Now then, feast your eyes on this little fellow, would you? For this is none other than Hayman's gin. Now, not everybody will have heard of this one. It's not particularly famous. However, I've been reading a lot about it recently and it has been making tremendous rumblings on the gin market. Now, this is a first for No Nonsense Gin Reviews because the vast majority of gins that I review are your standard, or no, I should say your classic London dry gin. Now, this little fellow is actually Old Tom gin, which is, it's not a brand of gin, that is a style of gin in the same way that London dry gin is a style of gin. Now, Old Tom gin is a very, very classic, a very traditional, a very historic, you could say, category of gin, because it arcs back to when gin was first popular in the 17th century, I believe. 17th century, 18th century, certainly around then, when gin became super hugely popular amongst the masses because it was cheap and it was an alternative to beer, which I think got quite expensive, and also to wine. So everybody wanted gin, and in fact, it became a bit of an epidemic in those times. A bit of a problem. People went so mad on gin. There was like sort of gin districts where you didn't go in because people were all just totally wasted on gin all the time. So the government actually tried to crack down on it at this point because it was becoming a major problem and it was plaguing the city, certainly London. So gin sort of got pushed underground, like black market. It was like sort of like a Class A drug. So what you would do to get around it, when obviously people still wanted their fix, so what would they do? Publicans or landlords, pub owners, would make a special sort of hole in the wall around the back of the pub, and they would have sort of a plaque above it, which was a tomcat, an Old Tom. So this plaque was fixed on the wall and looked like a tomcat, and it would have a little slot for a coin to be pushed in, and then a little hole. So you came along, you sort of shuffled around the corner looking all shady, you put your little coin in the slot, and then the barman would see the coin come through, and he'd pour some Old Tom gin into the like a funnel, and it would come out of this hole next to the coin slot, and you just hold your bottle there, and it would fill it. He'd pour you a big measure of gin, then you just sort of scuttle away and drink it in a shop doorway somewhere. So I didn't use this method to purchase this one. I used the traditional method of buying it off Amazon and getting it delivered. However, I thought it might be very interesting to try this today. So the company Hayman's also is a very, very interesting company because they've actually been around. They were really, to say they're not that famous, they're actually a really well-established company, and they've been around since 1863. I'll read you a little bit from their website here. Since 1863, 5 generations of our family have acted as custodians of the true English gin style, providing an unbroken lineage dating back to the original gin boom, which I just talked about. Throughout this 150 years, we have been proud to distill true English gins using family techniques and processes handed down through the generations. And it's got all the information on there about the various members of the family. Several members of the same family still actually heavily involved in the company. And a little bit about the Old Tom gin itself, because they do several, I think it's 4 different sorts of gins they do. You've got your classic London dry gin, a couple of others, and this one. Now, here's what they say about this one. Many people are unfamiliar with the true English Old Tom gin, as I said. Dating back to a period when gin was more richly flavoured, it remains a family favourite to this day. So Old Tom gin was a little bit sweeter and richer in flavour than your normal London dry gin. The gloriously generous quantities of botanicals used in our family recipe created a bold citrus and juniper pine character that is rich and rounded on the palate with a beautifully delicate finish. And the subtle underlying sweetness, as I say, keeps it true to the original style of English Victorian gin, first enjoyed in the 19th century English. So it's 19th century, sorry, I beg your pardon. Enjoy our true English Old Tom in a classic Martinet. I just tells you about putting it in a cocktail or something. Right, okay, let's get the fella open, shall we? And I don't think you're going to be able to see this, but I love the little nod to that, what I told you about the plaque with the picture of the tomcat on. If you can see, I don't know if you can see around the top of the bottle there, little pictures of cats. I think that's very, very cool. Not many people would know what that is, but now you'll be able to impress your friends by doing so. Right, do we have... Oh, hang on. Oh, I think we've got a cork. I don't want to pull it out by accident. I want to pull this bit off. Oh, yes, that means we've got a cork test, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do it. I've got a good feeling about this one. Here we go. So... Oh, it's got a little squeak as well. Top marks for the squeak. Excellent. You don't get many... No, a lot of these gins with the corks don't get a squeak anymore, so I'm very pleased about that. So, what's the pull going to be like? Go for it. Oh, it's a good, wholesome, bloody, I don't know what it is, like a slightly sort of, a very confident cork sound, I would say. Excellent, deep, hearty and resonant. Like it, Hayman's. Good work on the Cork Test. I've had a bad run on Cork Test recently, so I'm pleased about that. So, let's have a... Oh, yeah, it's kind of gin, but not as we know it. You know, there's a definitely, you get that sense of sort of a much richer, sort of sweeter, sort of more concentrated flavours in there coming up through the aromas. So, oh yeah, definitely. You get a sense of it by it being kind of a little bit thicker with flavours, more sort of just a bit less diluted. So, as you always know, we don't like to. It's always nice to sniff the bottle, but we don't like to spend too long doing it. So let's get this. Don't know if you can hear that. Oh, spilt load on the floor. I just love the sound of a glug 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 of a new bottle of gin. Oh God, poured a full size gin. Now I forgot that. Never mind. I've got more. I've got some tonic to go. So this is the last video of the day. So let's pour a good old measure in there, shall we? Maybe a little bit more. I think we don't want to drown it. No, don't want to overpower it. Sorry. Right then, let's give this a go, shall we? Hayman's Old Tom. Cheers. Oh my God! That. Oh, it's a little bit weak, but I tell you what. That, straight away, I knew it. As soon as it was travelling, I could see it travelling down the glass towards my mouth. I knew that was going to be good. Let me, hang on. Oh, I tell you what. I'm so glad I finished on that video today. That's my last video of the day. That is just... it's like gin heaven in a glass. If you like gin, I know my subscribers, you know what good gin tastes like. Okay, you enjoy gin, you know the good stuff. I guarantee you, you will love this. It's like gin and then some. It's like gin sort of ramped up. Man, it's hard to sort of describe. It's like gin, but better. This Old Tom mix, I can see what was so popular in the what was it, 19th century. Most bloody delicious. So it's like they've taken out a bit of the dilution and just sort of pressed all these flavours slightly together. I'd say it's about sort of 10% sweeter than your normal London dry gin, which doesn't sound a lot, I know, but that makes a big difference. Any more, it would be kind of too sweet, I think. But it's like they've sort of taken all that's good in gin and just squashed it all together slightly and just sort of made it a nice sort of a tightened, sort of more compressed ball of gin fun. I'm going to have to let her. Oh, I tell you, I could drink this. I could quite happily sit here and drink through the whole bottle, but I'd be dead, so I won't do that. But oh man, it's almost as if, you know, have you seen that episode of The Simpsons where Homer wants to eat 5 pounds of spaghetti bolognese, but he puts it into like a big funnel and turns a crank handle and it goes through and it pulls it and it sort of turns it out in a compressed. So he's compressed 5 pounds into like a little bar the size of a Mars bar and he eats it. It's like all the flavours are compressed. It's not that bad. Obviously, it's not to that point, but that's kind of an element of what happens. And I just, oh man, I think if you like gin, I'm pretty sure I would bet money on it that every single one of you, I've got 104 subscribers now at the time of recording. I bet you every single one of you, none of you, I'd lay money on it that none of you would dislike this. If you like gin, which you must do, I know you all do. I guarantee you would love it. And if you don't, I'll tell you what, I'll come right to me and I'll come around to your house and I'll give you some cash. That is how confident I am that you're going to love this. I'm going to be drinking this for a good while. I don't think I'm going to be getting bored of this anytime soon. Oh man, I love it. And what I also love is that it's something a little bit different from the norm. And I like the fact that it's a nod to our heritage, to where gin came from. Because without this, Old Tom gin back in that sort of 19th century, you wouldn't, or the 18th century, I can't remember, I forget, a long time ago, about 150 years ago. If we hadn't had that gin boom at the time, these people, drinking out of a hole in the wall, and if it hadn't been pushed underground like that, we wouldn't have had this. So we're tasting a bit of history here as well. I love that, because the gin market is so saturated at the moment. I love the fact it's just got a bit more depth of story in there, because let's face it, it's a rather dignified looking bottle, but it's not really sort of super stand out on the shelf. It's not one of these ones that's just really going to go. It's not really just going to stick out amongst the rest, is it? Like some mad, crazy labelling on it. So it's really important. It just shows it's really important. You can never judge a book by its cover. It's important to try the ones that perhaps don't really stand out that much and just look into the history, because this is the epitome of that. And I say to you, Haymans, keep up the good work. I'm looking. They do several other flavours of gin, so I'm very much looking forward to trying them all, and I'll be here to guide you through them as well. But as a start point, please, and that's the beauty about it. It's a bit of an experiment to try a new type of gin, but I know this is going on a bit long now, but I think it's worth it. It's quite a cheap experiment, even if you don't like it, which I'd be very surprised if you did. It's only £22, I think I picked this up for. Did I get it from Amazon? I said Amazon. No, hang on, no. I got this one from my shop in London, Headness and Wines, because they've got everything there. So £22, what's that, about $28, something like that? It's a real cheap experiment, and that's a really cheap gin for something which is truly spectacular and interesting and has a depth of history behind it. So, Haymans, I cannot thank you enough. Keep up that good work. I'm going to go now, because I think I've talked for way too long, but I've really enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it too. Don't forget to like or subscribe and all that nonsense, and I will see you next time, ladies and gentlemen. This has been No Nonsense Gin Reviews, where I reviewed Hayman's Old Tom Gin, and I'm Bobby Freeman, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.